the 5 freeway. This truck was apparently stolen while the driver was pumping gas in Santa Clarita. That is quite the story. So according to our extreme nav technology, we're on the 5 southbound in Sun Valley, speeds in the mid-60s at this point. Obviously light traffic given that it is 11:15 at night on this Wednesday night. We have retired police specialist Tim Lynn joining me on the line now. The details of this one, and given the fact that this is a big rig, Tim, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, the problem is he's not going to be able to steer it. And once he starts drifting, and if he starts moving a direction too fast, he's not going to be able to change directions. He's either going to go over the side or into the center divider. So hopefully common sense and a little bit of common sense kicks in here to where he decides, you know what, I've given it my best. I'm going to give up, and we see the speeds coming down now.
Yep. I'm glad you clarified when you said common sense. We just saw more of the rubber go. Yeah. So he's now pulling over because I think at this point, he or she knows. We don't know who the suspect is. Right. And it looks like this is now coming to an end with speeds into the 20s at this point. Wobbly, which we saw even when the tires were there. Not a lot of common sense from this person, Tim, when you said maybe some common sense will kick in. Maybe that is happening now. Let's hope so. I mean, you're not going to go much further, and this can only end really badly if you think that you can outrun all of the officers who are behind you. So it seems this is only a matter of time, and now we're getting the other side, and no front tires at all, Tim.
Right, and also I looked on the rear there. There was that left rear looked like it was flapping as well. So they got their left rear tires too. So, yeah, he's losing drive, he's losing motion, and now he's lost steering, and just now it's pushing the cab along. So very little control of that cab. So that's a good thing. It'll also come to a slow stop, just pieces and parts falling off. And he's going to start dragging. He's going to grind those rims down so far. He's going to start dragging the frame of the big rig. And once it gets to that point, it's not going to be enough power to push it. And plus, we don't know what's in that container, how heavy it is. But when this thing comes to an end, it's up to that driver suspect to determine how this pursuit's going to come to an end tonight. If it just gets out, gives up, everything goes nice and smooth. If it turns into a standoff, then we're going to have to call for armored vehicles to come up, because officers really have very limited view. You see now he's just fighting. They've got the one vehicle, but it kept going because it's such a powerful vehicle. It can drive along even though it doesn't have rubber on the wheels. But right now CHP is just going to have to sit back and try to figure out a game plan for this and how to contain this vehicle as it continues south on the 5 freeway.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the saving grace, the silver lining, if there is any, given the fact that it is light traffic, because it is 11:17 at night. So thank God there aren't more unsuspecting drivers out there. You see the night sun being shown from the chopper above. CHP, the lead agency. This is the southbound 5 in Sun Valley, speed mid-60s. That's been the case since we joined this pursuit. So, Tim, basically, if you're CHP, you're strategizing how to bring this to an end. They must have units up ahead trying to figure out, hey, if we can get these spike strips out, we will.
Yeah, they will. And then, like I said, they have different little choke points along these freeways. Like 5 freeway, when it gets down to East LA interchange, it drops down to 2 lanes. So that makes it more easy for the lanes to be covered with spike strips in a situation like this. And they're going to have to use multiple strips to be able to disable this vehicle. And then, we have to deal with what's in that container in the back. They're probably talking with the owner to figure out what is in there, what type of product. And then also, does that owner have weapons in his cab? Because that is a sleeper cab. You can see that extended area behind the driver's window. That's actually a bed and a living quarters for the driver. So they're going to try to figure out what he has in there. So because their vision is very limited into that cab, to where when it does come to a stop, how are they going to approach it and what they're going to do with it? But right now, they're going to have to, work with the watch commander and then use their information that they have on this vehicle, and then find that choke point to where they can put out spike strips to be able to take the tires out of this vehicle.
It looks, we're moving on over, it looks like. Maybe there's traffic ahead, or maybe the driver's noticing spike strips. It's always hard to see, but the night sun is giving us a better view. Yeah, lanes wide open here. It looks like that container says CMACGM. I'm not exactly sure if that's what it is, but, you know, what do you make of the fact that this truck driver was apparently just getting gas in Santa Clarita and then gets his big rig stolen? I mean, you've been around the block a few years now, former police officer Tim Lynn. Have you heard of such a thing?
It doesn't matter what kind of vehicle it is. If somebody's going to steal your vehicle while you're distracted putting fuel in, they're going to take it no matter what it is. We've had fire trucks stolen. We had a pursuit of a fire truck that was taken out of Seal Beach down through Huntington Beach when I worked down there. So the type of vehicle doesn't matter. If a person wants to steal it or has an idea that they can jump in and take off, you know, they will. And this may be a targeted theft, because there may be something very valuable in that container that's going down to the port or that was coming up from the port. You know, it's just a matter of what is the mindset of the person who's in the vehicle.
It's wobbling.
Yeah, it's kind of weaving around. Yeah, it's kind of weaving around, and see the cab wobbling there.
It makes me think that this is just pure for a joyride. Like, I'm gonna steal this and just see what I can make of it, you know? I mean, with the wobbling inside. And it also makes me think of, if you're gonna steal something like this, you better know how to drive it, because once we get off the freeway, and if they were to take an exit now that we're nearing Burbank, or are in Burbank, if we go on surface streets, that's a whole different ball game in terms of maneuvering this big rig.
Absolutely. I mean, you're now going to have a very heavy vehicle, you know, upward 40, 50,000 pounds whipping down the street. If it goes through the intersection and hits another vehicle, the other vehicle's not going to stand a chance. And then the maneuverability of the vehicle as it's on surface streets. But, you know, coming on the 5 right here, it's a pretty wide area. It looks like he might be moving over for the exit here at Burbank or at Alameda, but you just don't know what his plans are, what the reasoning is. And like I said, right now they're talking with that driver of that truck to figure out what's in it, what could possibly have happened. Was there any dialogue between the suspect and the victim while the truck was being stolen? And it's just, you know, all that information is put together by CHP, and then they're going to formulate a plan to be able to take this thing, just get it stopped. Like I said, right now, from my past experience, and having seen these things from a police car and from a police helicopter and also from news helicopter, you know, there's only one way to stop a big rig like this, is just try to take out the tires as best you can with those spike strips. And like I said, there's choke points along the 5 freeway here, and once he gets into those areas, maybe the CHP will have those areas carpeted to be able to take it out.
All the other drivers there, I mean, those vehicles are just dwarfed by this big rig. Now speeds in the 70s, so all along it's been pretty much in the 60s, picking it up into the 70s at one point anyway. So this is the southbound 5. If you know anyone who happens to be on the road at this hour, please let them know, because this is really a dangerous situation. It doesn't matter that traffic is light. This person behind the wheel obviously driving erratically, recklessly, no care to seemingly any of these other innocent drivers out there. If you are just joining our coverage of this stolen big rig pursuit, we can tell you that this started in Santa Clarita. We're getting word this started at a gas station when the big rig driver was trying to fill up, and it was stolen then. Going over the center divider here. Are we taking an exit, Tim? It looks like it.
Yeah, it looks like
this is this exchange to the 134.
Yeah, 134 East is probably going to pick up, because the westbound you have to get off at Verdugo. So this is going to be the East 134, which will take it down through Eagle Rock area down into Pasadena, and then they'll join the 210. So, you know, it's going to keep wide open here. The 134 is 4 to 5 lanes most of the way, and once it's the 210, that's going to stay wide open as well. So that choke point that I was hoping for down by the East LA Interstate just went away, but CHP will adjust to that. That's one thing you have to be in police work, is flexible and go with what the suspect does and flex to his actions, and then take advantage of the area knowledge that you have to be able to get out ahead of this vehicle.
All right, so this is the first time that we've seen the big rig off the 5, now on the 134 east in the Glendale area. As I was saying, as we zoom in here, it's hard to see. You can't really get a look at all of the suspect there behind the wheel. This was essentially carjacked from a big rig driver in Santa Clarita, jumped on the 5 freeway. We picked this up in Newhall, and now we're here in the Glendale area, eastbound 134. CHP is the lead agency. We have former police officer Tim Lynn on the line with us. He's really helping to paint a picture of how this may come to an end eventually. A pit maneuver is obviously out of the question given the size of the big rig, and we've learned from former officer Tim Lynn that the only way to bring this to an end is establishing spike strips out there on the highway to damage those tires to bring this to an end. So in terms of strategizing, Tim, I mean, this is such an event for CHP to try to figure out how do we do this? Even though there isn't a lot of traffic, it's still hard to do.
They really have very limited view. You see now he's just fighting to keep the thing in a straight line. Officers have a very limited view of that vehicle, and also that driver has access to the back of that rig. As I mentioned earlier, they've asked the driver who had this vehicle, do you have any weapons in your sleeping compartment in the back? Yeah, he's fighting it really hard here, trying to keep it going. And so you see, once you get to a little shot of that left rear, you see it, rubber flapping on it. So they got that tire as well. And so he's having drive problems, he's having directional problems, and like I said, he's either going to end up into the center divider wall, pinned against it, or over the side if he goes to the right. But looks like he's just going to try and push this as far as it'll go until it just gives up the ghost. But he's grinding those front rims down.
Yeah, and it looks like, or is that just the residuals of those mid tires, if they're compromised at all as well? They're taking the brunt of this. So, by the way, this is 210 westbound exit. There is the Baseline Road in Ontario. Speeds now 15 miles per hour. You saw how close the black and whites are behind, just sort of waiting this out along with the rest of us. Spike strips, let's give kudos to CHP. We believe it was CHP. That's what we understand it to be, that threw out those spike strips on the 210 westbound. So hats off to CHP officers who successfully did that and completely wiped out those two front tires. Now we're riding on nothing but rims. I'm reminded I have covered a big rig pursuit on the 5 that lasted a very long time. It was a similar situation, Tim, where the spike strips resulted in the two front wheels gone, and eventually it caught fire. And the whole front cab has caught fire. It did catch fire, and that's what brought that pursuit to the end. So hopefully we don't see flames erupt. I've seen it before. As I'm looking at the clock, it's now midnight. You're watching an extended version of Good Night LA. Weeknights at 11 o'clock, usually a 30-minute newscast. We're in our 4th week, and this is now into a 60-minute Goodnight LA because we've been following this stolen big rig pursuit out of Bakersfield. It was picked up in Santa Clarita. We're now in Ontario, where we have former police officer Tim Lynn on the line as we watch this hopefully come to an end. At any given moment. You're getting flashes, Tim, of the suspect behind the wheel, and I can't imagine what it's like to drive a big rig like this, but then to drive one without front tires.
I imagine it's quite difficult. I would think so, because he has very little directional control with the vehicle, and probably not a lot of drive, because I see that one tire on the drive wheels there flapping rubber as it goes along. And I remember that pursuit you were speaking about, Marla, is that it drags the front. He's also been just grinding those front rims down, and the more they grind, the less control he has with this vehicle. And like you said, it's difficult enough to drive these big rigs with everything working properly. I can't imagine the difficulty he must be facing. And I use the word he because we don't know if it's a man or a woman driving.
Right.
But the driver to be able to control this thing with very little steerage, and then also kind of flopping tires in the back to where, it's got to be something. You see pieces and parts just flying off, and pretty soon that frame is going to come down.
Yeah, I mean, given what we were just talking about, that former pursuit that we covered with this big rig, a similar situation, and I mentioned that the whole cab caught fire. This is exactly that scenario. I mean, you're seeing the flames, or the spikes, I should say, the sparks, and after the spike strips did their job, the wheels, the tires completely gone, speeds now into the 50s. It's almost like this person has a death wish at this point, Tim.
Yeah, I don't think he's thinking at all, or he doesn't understand what's going to happen here when he loses total control of the vehicle or hits somebody. It's just a matter of time before he just will not be able to steer this, and that frame will be on the ground. And if he stays on the gas pedal, it's going to end very badly for him. Like I said, if it goes over to the right side, there's a good chance he'll roll it. But if he goes in a center divider, unless he keeps his big speeds up, he may go through the center divider if he's at enough of an angle to it that he doesn't glance off. And then you see right here, as a unit was coming up on the freeway, he made kind of a move to the right, like he was going after the vehicle, after the CHP vehicle that was coming up. But I can't imagine him having too much steerage left with this vehicle. As the sparks continue to grow under there, that's that friction I was talking about that's going to build up. And eventually it's going to get so hot and there's going to be so much grinding going on that, something's going to ignite underneath there. And that's exactly what happened to that other big rig that we spoke about.
Yeah, so on that wide shot, we just saw those 3 CHP officers. We're seeing more debris fly off. At the risk of, asking a stupid question or not, posing it correctly because I don't know my big rigs, but just given, Tim, just how compromised the rig is without the front tires, with all the sparks flying, and we're seeing, is it the axle there? I mean, at what point will this just give? Is that imminent?
Well, you see here, we're putting out the sparks, and it looks like it's still coming from the rims, so the rims are still holding the frame off the ground. And like I said, at a point when those rims will grind down and eventually start getting down into the frame, and now you're seeing more underneath the truck.
I think you're seeing flames.
Yeah.
I think we're actually seeing those flames.
Yep, it's doing exactly what we talked about, and now it's going to catch fire. And he's going to have to make a decision here. How much further am I going to drive this with it in flames? And eventually it'll come up through the floorboard.
Yep, this is exactly what I was talking about.
Yep, exactly. So this is what's going to bring it to an end. It's going to be on fire. And one thing about it being on fire, that'll encourage him to get out of the truck. So it's not going to be a long standoff.
No, I mean, and since you do recall that other big rig pursuit where it ended literally with the whole cab igniting into flames, I mean, you saw that suspect at that point jump out as fast as they possibly could. So we could very well see this again. And look at all of those sparks, Tim. Mm-hmm. Look at all of those. And now you have to wonder about the CHP officers who are following behind.
Yeah, they're probably dodging pieces and parts coming off at them now. And as Skyfox swings around to the right side, you're seeing now that that's just metal being ground on the concrete, being pushed by that truck, and it's just going to work its way up and burn the side of the vehicle, and then start setting off. Now he's going to have to get away from the sound wall here, but it looks like we're off the freeway, maybe here at Haven. And so we'll see what happens once he gets over here. But he's up on the side of the freeway, and now you're going to have to worry about. And now
you think about the trees. Okay, now we've stopped. Yeah. We've stopped, and now those flames could very well light up the hillside. And now you see the suspect making a run for it up the hill. Tim, doing his darndest to get to the top. He's making good ground considering. But you know that those CHP officers, they are there too. And there is a big retaining wall, as we're seeing, certainly a male suspect here. Looks like maybe a red hoodie, a jacket on. Now it's, how are you going to get over? How are you going to scale this wall?
It's going to be tough unless there's an access. They do have accesses along the way. There are little doors that go through to make access for fire department, but you're going to have some very Well, he's over the fence and on to
there he is. Yep,
the
still
road
got him.
and running. But you're going to have some very fit CHP officers coming over the freeway wall there and taking off with it. The Ontario, actually the San Bernardino County sheriffs are overhead now, and they're probably communicating with the Ontario PD to where the suspect is going. He's going up to a house.
Going into, is this a single unit home? Yeah, it looks like it is, with a backyard.
Yeah.
This is Hermosa Avenue, by the way. And so we're seeing, you know, obviously the suspect's trying to figure out, where can I go? Where can I hide? I hope whomever is home, doors are locked. We're getting more of, looks like a young man, hat backward, hooded sweatshirt, gray, red interior here, now walking, trying to maybe play it cool.
There's a CHP officer going to come up on him. You see his flashlight going there, and now he's going to pick up speed. Yeah, the problem here is now you're going to hear, people are going to hear helicopters, they're going to hear sirens, and the one thing you do not want to do as a citizen is open your front door to see what's going on, because you might have this guy right at your front door just trying to find a place to go. My worry at this point is he's checking doorknobs. My worry now would be, should somebody be coming home now in their car and be pulling into this thing, because this guy will take the car in a heartbeat. But there's a CHP officer right behind him here and now has eyes on him. The problem now is when he gets out of the car, then there may be a communications problem with the portable radio he's carrying and the Ontario, or the San Bernardino County sheriffs are overhead. So, he's going to get caught.
It looks like the taser. You could see that the CHP officer just released the taser, perhaps.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw the yellow taser come out.
Yep, yellow taser came out. Now we're under the eaves here. So this is the Ontario area. You see now another CHP officer, perhaps. They tased him. We're getting word, another officer. Now it looks like they have that suspect on the ground.
Yep.
Obviously, we're not getting a great view of that, but there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it looks like, officers there. We saw that yellow taser come out, and then moments later, that suspect on the ground. Now, Skyfox penning back over, so you get really full perspective here of that big rig completely on fire, that cab. And we had talked about this, having covered a similar pursuit where it ended in this very same fashion. A spike strip had damaged the vehicle's tires so badly that those were gone, and then eventually, given that the suspect was not giving up, riding on rims, the cab caught fire, and this is the result. This is the 210 in the Ontario area, and now thankfully it doesn't look like that hillside has caught fire, so let's hope that that doesn't happen. More CHP units descending on this neighborhood. What a rude awakening for these folks now that it's well past midnight on this now Thursday morning. We are getting word from CHP that that suspect is officially in custody, as now CHP has this scene to deal with. They need firefighters there as soon as possible to be able to get out those flames. You don't want this whole thing. We don't know what's in the container, the shipping container too, that this big rig was carrying. So as we